Hey, it's James from Espresso Resto. Today we're going to be looking at an Expobar Minore, or in the US it's called a Brewtus. It's quite unique in that it's a 2-boiler system rather than the single heat exchanger boiler that we've seen before in the Expobar Office Control. This one has 2 separate boilers. So what I thought we might do is have a quick look at the machine, but also pull the cover off and I'll show you how those 2 boilers work. So we look at the machine here. It's a classic sort of lever action machine. We've got both of our boilers controlled here by a switch. We've got a PID controlling the brew boiler, which is really cool. We get to actually dial in a particular temperature, and I'll talk about why that's of benefit later, having that separate brew boiler. And then we've got our A61 group, and over here we've got a brew, we've got our boiler pressure gauge, but also our brew pressure gauge, which we had on another machine we looked at the other day, the Rocket. And here the usual scenario of steam wand and hot water tap. So why don't we dive in behind the covers? First of all, safety first. Let's turn off the power and unplug the machine so that we don't fry ourselves when we have a look inside. So the back boiler here is our heat exchanger boiler, pretty much operating like the Office Control or some of the other heat exchangers we've looked at, where water is pumped through a heat exchanger and that would normally go into the group here. But in this instance, it continues on and goes into this separate brew boiler. And then you have your steam generated in this top half of the back boiler here, and also the hot water being pushed out the bottom of that into the hot water tap. So you can see the hot water tap line here. So this is your steam and hot water, but it also preheats water going into the brew boiler. The benefit of having this huge brew boiler full of hot water is you get a really steady brew temperature. And as I mentioned before, that PID on the front of the machine, that you're controlling your brew boiler temperature, you are controlling the heating element with that. So it's getting a constant loop of temperature feedback and keeping this brew boiler at ideal brewing temperature. What that means is that when you're doing steaming and hot water extraction from this boiler, it doesn't greatly affect the temperature of your brew boiler. So that's a big benefit, because in the single boiler operation, when the boiler starts refilling, you can cool off the boiler, and then your brew temperature is not quite right. You have to wait. So you've basically got this huge buffer of hot water here, giving you a nice stable operating window for your espresso shots, but also at the same time you're able to do your hot water and steam flat out. This is a real beast. Thought we'd make long black for a change. Given that we're in lockdown again in Melbourne, something different. Pulling a little bit hard on the pressure on the brew here. Probably haven't got my grinds just right. It does tend to pull a bit harder when you're using the single as well. I'm using a single today. Alright. There you go. Long black. Not the best, but it's alright. So that was the Minore 3, or Brewtus as the guys in the US call it. It's a real brute of a machine, so it's a really appropriate name. This one's just been serviced by myself, and we are looking for these kind of machines. From time to time we do get them in, so keep in touch. And thanks for watching this video. It's been a bit of a lockdown production. Had to shoot it on a camera with my son on the mobile phone, because the cameraman is not allowed to the house at the moment. So had a bit of fun doing it with the boy. So in the meantime, keep in touch and keep caffeinated.